at Central University and has received her Master of Science degree in nursing from East Carolina University. She also holds a certification in the care of adult medical and surgical patients. She is a wife, mother, and born-again child of the Most High King.
Good afternoon. Welcome to Family Health Matters. I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers. We are here every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. I am so glad that you are able to join us today. And today we are so excited about the conversation that we'll be having. And I'm going to give you our number. So if you want to call in and join the conversation, you can. You can call in at 252-756-2008. So if you want to join in the conversation, you can. So today's topic, we're going to be talking about holistic brain health, empowering our communities. I have with me a specialist in this area. I have Miss Julie Gaven here with us on today. She is, well, you know what? I'm going to let Julie has so many acronyms behind her name, and she is so passionate about brain health. I'm going to let her sort of share a little bit about what she do and why this is so important to her. And then we'll jump into our conversation. So, Julie, welcome to the table this afternoon.
Thank you so much for having me. It is a beautiful day to be here, and I'm so delighted to share with you about brain health because this is a topic very near and dear to my heart.
Well, great. So, Julie, tell me a little bit about yourself. I know you are a medical speech language pathologist. What's that?
Yes, ma'am. That is the fancy name for a speech therapist.
Okay.
But as opposed to working in the schools with young children, my whole career has been in the medical field, actually working with adults and geriatric clients all throughout the lifespan. I do cover some pediatrics as well in my prior world, but now I am delighted to be a research program manager at the Brody School of Medicine here at East Carolina University, right up the road in Greenville.
Yeah.
And it is absolute pleasure to go around and do community outreach and educate folks about the importance of brain health with the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health, which I'm honored to be a part of.
All right, great. So that makes you, I try to bring experts to the table when we're talking about our family and the things that matter to our family. So today we're considering you as the expert at the table. So tell me, what is brain health? What does that mean?
It is a big concept because the brain is this super complex, ultra organized supercomputer, really. It controls and gets feedback from everything in our body, from our muscles to our nerves, our organs, our whole sensory system is fully integrated in the brain, and it controls everything that we do. So it is an amazing organ. It has so many different facets and talents and I think superpowers because of all the skills that it has. It's been breathing and beating my heart and blinking my eyes and remembering to swallow my saliva without my conscious awareness. And yet it is also very fragile and it can be injured or damaged by a variety of environmental and genetic and just life events that happen to us. So as part of our brain health mission, we want to spread awareness of the things we can do to protect our wonderful brain and keep it healthy at all ages and all generations.
Wow, that is so true. You think about you think about your skull being around that's protecting, but inside of there is all that what we call gray matter that's in there and mushy and everything.
Yes. There are millions of brain cells called neurons and trillions of connections between them. So it is lightning fast at communicating, but when those connections between the nerve cells themselves or the brain and the rest of the body start to deteriorate or get injured from illness or disease, it can be very sensitive, and even a little change can have a big impact in such a complex system like the human brain.
Wow. So with that being said, thinking about everybody, want to make sure that they protect, as you said, protect their brain, and everybody has it. Well, people have in their back of their mind is, I don't want to, lose my intelligence. I don't want to lose my brain, my thoughts. So what can we do as we prepare? I know you mentioned something about gentle things that can cause injury to the brain, but what are some things that we can do with a healthy brain? We'll talk a little bit about brain injury, but healthy brains that we can continue to keep them healthy.
That is a great question. And there's a lot of research coming to us in this area about the holistic kind of lifestyle medicine approach to very natural, very easy interventions that we can start at younger ages, even as young as childhood, to protect our brains while they're growing. Our brain continues to grow and learn and change and adapt throughout life. And as we're growing those new connections, although the speed of our growth may slow down a bit as we get older, we want to protect those new growths as well as strengthen the connections that already exist between the neurons in our brain. We are very aware of the impact of dementia and Alzheimer's disease in many of our communities, and that is a big concern for a lot of families that I talk to when I'm out in the community. So being proactive and being able to take very intentional and very conscious steps towards protecting our brain and keeping it healthy is the key. We didn't know dementia was possibly preventable until recently, and there's so much we still need to learn. The scientists and the researchers are doing phenomenal work in this area, but there's still a lot we don't know about the brain. It's quite mysterious. Specific to changing our mindset about the fact that we can be proactive and be intentional about protecting our brain at all ages, making sure we're very mindful of our physical health. There is this mind, body, spirit connection, as you know, and that importance of the brain to help and heal and control the body can't be overstated. People who have any history of cardiac disease, blood pressure, will certainly want to take early steps to treat what can be treated and manage those chronic conditions such as diabetes. I've heard a physician refer to diabetes as, or Alzheimer's rather, as diabetes type 3. There's just this huge link between long-term, lifelong conditions and brain health when we get older. Stopping smoking is a big one for many folks. I know this was a really strong tobacco farming area of the country back when, and still is quite a producer for some regions. But smoking, we know, doesn't just harm the lungs. It goes beyond that to our brain and our heart and even our blood vessels themselves. Managing things that put us at vascular risk, especially that blood pressure I mentioned. Thyroid disease is a big one, especially for women. Please get your thyroid checked if you haven't already. That is a very sensitive area for hormones, and that has an impact on our brain health as well.
Okay, that's great, because you don't think about connecting it to your brain. You think about what it's doing to your body, and not thinking about the fact that your brain is part of your body.
It's all connected, absolutely. And our sleep is vitally important. That is something that I know many people struggle with, getting a really good deep REM cycle for a good night's sleep. And we know that's when the brain is able to heal itself, almost as though we could recharge our mental batteries while we're resting. Those deeper sleep cycles are so important to help the brain heal itself and keep itself strong throughout life.
Wow, that's good. That's good. So, Julie, tell us a little bit. You said, you work with clients, on the whole realm of life. So then you talk about preventive. So as children, because which family health matters. So thinking about children as they begin to grow and develop, how can we, I know we talked a little bit about chronic disease, but how can we steer parents and grandparents into helping our children while they're small and little and the brain are still forming, help develop good habits or things that's going to help with their brain health?
Absolutely. They learn so fast.
Yes.
My little cousins' brains were like sponges, truly. They just soak up the information so rapidly, and they're learning so much when their vocabularies are expanding at those early stages. Diet and nutrition has a huge role to play for brain health. We know that we are what we eat, and a lot of us know
that is a true statement.
It is. The gift of the nutrition and dietary research has shown us what a positive impact eating healthy, organic, or antioxidant-rich foods and fruits, vegetables, reducing that red meat and sweet consumption, and really focusing on those antioxidants that give our brain and bodies the ability to heal and strengthen. Those are really early lessons that children are quite quick to pick up on from a nutrition standpoint. We know there's a lot of research into the Mediterranean and DASH diets as far as the omega-3s, and places that tend to eat more fish tend to have longer brain health and longevity as far as being a blue zone, with a lot of healthy centenarians throughout the world. So there's a lot for us to learn there, whether it's just teaching them how to eat healthy and exercise to get that blood flow, circulating the oxygen to the brain. Exercise is also medicine, according to my PT colleagues.
Yeah.
So learning about ways to stay physically active and stay healthy through our diet. For young children involved in sports and learning to ride bikes, it's especially important to wear a helmet. March is Brain Injury Awareness Month, and I want to give a quick shout out to the importance of prevention for all ages to prevent falls, but especially for children to avoid bumps to their head if they're engaged in contact sports or learning those fine motor and balance skills.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you see people jump on a bicycle or motorcycle and don't protect their head at all.
I worry about them so much if I see them without a helmet. It gives me anxiety. I want everyone's brains to be safe on the road. We can look out for each other that way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, you think about it, you think about the fact that it does cover the head part, where your skull is, and that so that if you have that impact, that impacts the helmet more so than it actually does the skull. So put that shout out there for Brain Injury Month today. And part of why we're talking about this is because it's all about brain health, brain injury. So we can prevent anything from happening, then we're in the right direction. We're moving forward in the right direction. An ounce of
prevention is always worth a pound of cure. My medical career has certainly taught me that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So you mentioned earlier about control your blood pressure and everything. We always talk about, as a nurse, we always talk about, managing, even though if you have to take your medication, this is a way to manage your blood pressure, manage your diabetes. But we don't think about I don't say we won't think about, but we don't often talk about how you think about vascular, but you don't think about the vascular part that goes to the brain. So we have to make sure that when we're talking and teaching about education with diabetes and controlling your blood pressure, that it does have an effect on the brain.
1000%. The brain actually uses the majority of the blood flow and oxygen that circulates throughout our body. It is always hungry for that fuel. And even though it is only 3 pounds, it does a lot of processing. So it needs that extra energy and oxygen to keep it going at full speed when it's operating in peak condition.
Yes, we want it to operate in peak condition at all times. So, what about, you said it's only, how big did you say your brain was?
I've heard various numbers. The general consensus amongst most scientists, I think, is around 3 to 4 pounds on average. It's going to vary a bit between individuals, but it does have those millions with the zeros that go on forever of neurons and the trillions of connections of the neurons talking to each other. It's just such an intricate and delicate organ that we want to be very protective of it and very proactive in maintaining its health.
So, because it's so fragile, even though it may be, 3 pounds, or 6 pounds, varies, but, it can be, when you damage your brain, you damaged a lot of your body.
It is.
Because tell us a little bit about how your career as a speech pathologist has incorporated you into dealing with brain health.
Oh, neurology and neuroscience was always my favorite class when I was in school. I was so fascinated by the brain. But as a therapist, it really gave me some eye-opening experience and perspectives into how significant life-altering events can be, not just for our patients, but all of their family members. Some things like Alzheimer's disease or stroke, or brain injury, they don't happen in a vacuum, and nothing is really in isolation. We're all connected.
Right.
So seeing that impact on the whole family unit really made me want to advocate and be more proactive about empowering others to take care of their brain health as well.
So tell us about that. If we're talking to families now, so give us some ideas or some examples of if we have a family member that has had a stroke or has dementia or Alzheimer's, how can we help that family member, or how can we help our loved one that's developing these things?
It is so good to keep your eyes and ears open and be a strong advocate, especially for our elders. Some of them may not be comfortable navigating the healthcare system, and there can be some mental health stigma that folks are actually very hesitant to even open up or ask about if they suspect there may be some mild changes in my loved one's memory or attention or cognitive skills from a safety or problem solving perspective.
Mhm.
Most of our close friends and family will be the first ones to notice if something is just ever so slightly off. And it can be subtle, it can be very minor and mild at the beginning. But processes like a stroke or even the dementias, of course, there's more than one type beyond Alzheimer's,
Right,
but we
right.
know that that's a progressive condition that can get worse over time. So being their advocate and being their voice so they can still have access and representation and communication with their care providers, even at a stage where it may be difficult for them to do so, is really important.
So what does that look like?
It looks like going with them to their doctor's appointments, not
Okay.
letting them struggle alone,
Hmm.
being that safe space for a non-judgmental, very honest conversation about your concern and care for your parent, your grandparent, or your loved one who may be having these memory difficulties. It's really scary and hard to talk about and really be open about unless we have that trusting relationship with someone we know and trust has our best interests at heart. Being able to get them in contact with a second opinion or a referral to a neurologist, a neuropsychologist, somebody who can do more advanced testing for these types of brain conditions, especially in mid to later life, is something so simple, but just being able to bridge that gap and help
Hmm.
drive them to appointments or check in to make sure they're taking their medicines as prescribed, because that can have a lot of side effects if they're not taken properly. I'm sure you're familiar with that in the
Yeah.
nursing field.
Yeah. But that, and I wanted you to share that because sometimes it's hard to feel like you're not, to keep from feeling like you're overstepping your boundaries when you want to say to your grandmother or to your mom, can I go with you to the doctor's appointment?
Sure.
So you have to find that balance. And I know people struggle with that. So what does it look like was clear to be able to give people somewhat the okay that it's all right to do these things. And this is what we do as a family and building that trust.
That is a wonderful approach. Yes, even just offering or asking, how can I help? Some people are more receptive to that than others.
Mhm.
If they're used to being very, strong and independent their whole life, it's really hard to give up. Even the control around driving can be a big debate for some families when we're really concerned about our loved ones' safety. So there can be a lot of ways to just come alongside and rather than being in any type of judgmental way, just partner with them and collaborate in supporting them to get to where they need to be.
That's great. That's great because that pulls in the whole family. That pulls in the whole
It
family.
does.
And then too, as care providers, to know that you don't have to do this all by yourself. That if you pull in the sisters and the brothers and the cousins and the aunts and the uncles
It's a
to
team
help.
sport. You can't do it
Yeah,
alone.
yeah,
Truly. I don't know many of us who go through the human journey all on our own. It does
yeah.
take a village to care for each other. So making sure that we have that network and that support system in place is super helpful, especially to our elders.
Absolutely, absolutely. So tell us a little bit about, you mentioned dementia. So tell us a little bit about that and the difference between that and Alzheimer's. Is there a difference or can you share with us?
Yes, ma'am, there is a difference, and that is a very nuanced question because there can be some misperception that they
Mhm.
are completely synonymous when in fact there's a huge spectrum of different dementia types other than Alzheimer's. If we think of dementia as the big umbrella, Alzheimer's is a type of dementia. It's a
Okay.
form of disease where the brain cells start to get breakdown from plaques and tangles. We call them tau proteins, and then the beta amyloids that can build up in our brain. And that actually breaks down the connections between the brain cells, like we talked about earlier. Those build up throughout life. And if they reach a crucial tipping point, they can start to manifest in memory changes, personality changes, sleep changes. The brain is very sensitive, like we said. So
Right.
being able to detect those early warning signs, Alzheimer's disease does account for at least 60 to 80% of a lot of the dementia that we think of, but there are other types such as frontotemporal dementia, mixed dementias. We know about Lewy body disease. There's actually a Lewy body dementia, and other conditions like Parkinson's disease and Huntington's disease can also have a memory challenge associated with them. And there may be other forms we just haven't discovered a name for yet.
Right.
Alzheimer's is a very common kind of dementia, and that is probably the one most folks are familiar with. But it is part of this cluster of other symptoms that can result in different types of dementia outside of just Alzheimer's.
So how do you go about getting that diagnosed? How do you go about that if you had a family member that you were suspicious or thought something was going on? What would the rope be?
Being able to track how they're functioning over time is very helpful, because especially as your own family member, you probably know their baseline as far as what they were like 5 years ago, and being able to compare that to where they may be now. Dementia is often a diagnosis of exclusion. There's really not a single test that we run, although the scientists and researchers are exploring and discovering really exciting new ways to detect it earlier in life. So the sooner we can catch it, the sooner we can hopefully treat it. Right now, there's no cure, so we're still on the quest for that, and I hope we'll find it in my lifetime. But being able to get them to the neurologist, being able to get those memory evaluations, and SLP can be a helpful ally in that. In the allied health world, we do a lot of cognitive and memory evaluation and treatment. But what I see a lot of folks missing is that the doctors will need to rule out other causes and make sure that they're absolutely certain there's no other side effects or no other comorbidities or related conditions contributing to that memory loss before they will give that diagnosis of dementia. It is progressive. It does not get better once it starts. So the best thing we can do is get ahead of the curve by preventing it in the first place.
Okay. So, how, you said preventing it. So what anything, I know we talked about diet, we talked about food, we talked about exercise. So those are the things that we should be putting into place to help.
Yes, ma'am. Being very, very mindful about what we eat, how we're taking care of our physical health through exercise and managing those chronic conditions, being able to manage stress and emotional health is also crucially important. I know since the pandemic, there's been a big surge in mental health awareness for many of our community members, and that has a big impact, not just on our hormones, our sleep, but our brain health. So it is so important to open up and be a safe place to ask those questions and talk about it with your loved ones, your friends, and your families.
Absolutely. So resources, what are the resources that are out there?
There are some wonderful resources out there for anyone who's interested in learning more about brain health or just exploring the discoveries that we're making in this field. It is a fascinating time to be on the cutting edge of some of these really exciting discoveries that we're making. But I would like to particularly give a shout out for my friends at the North Carolina Registry for Brain Health. This is an absolutely free resource right here in our own backyards. I don't think many people are aware of it in all of our wonderful Eastern North Carolina regions, but it is a collaborative statewide initiative of researchers, doctors, medical scientists, and of course our communities, because they would not be making these discoveries without our patients and families contributing to the growing body of knowledge every day. They really exist to connect people to the research and the resources for caregiver support. For the Alzheimer's Association, there's a wonderful network of supports, as well as through the Dementia Alliance here in North Carolina. We have many partners that can help connect people, the patients, the families, and the caregivers to the supports that are available to them locally. www.ncbrainhealth.org is our website, and there is a full page that goes on and on and on if you'd like to scroll through and take a look there. There's national, state, and local organizations dedicated to brain health and preventing dementia, as well as researching a cure for dementia. So it's a very wide network. We want to reach everyone from the mountains to the seashore and invite everybody to be part of the solution by taking care of not just your brain health, but those you love.
Absolutely. That is important that you look at that And it's just go in there and, and if you're not very good with the computer, just go in there and you can Google brain health. And those things will pop up there for you.
They do. They come up by the dozens.
Yeah.
There's a wonderful resource of a tip sheet that's available on the website. If you go under Brain Health Tips, there's a tab that you can actually click through all the different topics we touched on today and learn a lot more about each of them. We also want to invite people to sign up for the newsletter, which is also absolutely free and comes out quarterly. That will give you the latest and greatest updates from all of our research partners and our statewide collaborators looking at brain health.
Yeah, and I'm sure too, Julie, that you probably could find brochures in the doctor's offices when you go to your visits for your clinics or for your well checks. I'm
That's
sure
a great
those
place to look.
are places, just sitting around. And then if not, you can always ask, because I'm sure your primary care provider or whoever you're seeing will be more than happy to direct you on how you could, find out additional information, because we got to make sure that we're not quiet. We need to be speaking out and seeking assistance instead of in our little shell and trying to, sometimes we feel like we're trying to protect our loved ones so we won't say anything. And that's not helping at all.
That can actually be very dangerous to our loved ones if we're not willing to speak up and speak out on their behalf in some cases, but to make sure that we are their advocates and getting them to that medical care at the right time and in the right place to get the attention that they need. That's a balancing act for many families and caregivers. I know.
It takes, like you said, it takes a village. It takes a village. I know we talked a little bit, and we've got just like a little minute left. We talked a little bit about the pillars, and I think we mentioned all of them in one way or the other. So anything you want to share about that? Just a little brief sort of pulling things together about brain health.
Absolutely. I am so honored to be actually involved in some of the research studies myself. I am a granddaughter of dementia, and I know what it's like to see a loved one go through that journey. Please know that you're not alone. If this is something that affects you or affects someone you know, sometimes just being there as a friend and giving them that support can change the world. And if you just offer them those free resources and online support groups and the resources that are on the website we mentioned can connect them to some of those specialists that they may not have otherwise come in contact with. So please know you're not alone, and it is always a good thing to reach out. We're happy to be of service if we can provide education or empowerment to any of our friends here in the community.
Well, Julie, thank you so much for being here on the radio show with us today. You have shared some awesome information, and it's time to round it down. So again, I'm your host, Wendy Bridgers. We are here every Thursday on Awesome Radio 106.9 FM with Family Health Matters. And today, my guest was Julie Gaven, and has shared some great information on holistic brain health. So again, join us every Thursday from 3 to 3:30 on Family Health Matters. Awesome Radio 106.9 FM. Thank you all for joining.
Thank you.
Keep on listening to Awesome Radio 106.9 WBIS.